Hello again. Time for us to have another look at Revelation. Today we're in Revelation chapter 3, verses 7 to 13, Christ's letter to the church at Philadelphia. So if you've not already had a read, please pause the video and have a read of Revelation chapter 3, verses 7 to 13, Christ's letter to the church at Philadelphia. Okay, we're thinking very much about pushing an open door is our phrase, title really for this letter. When Jesus wrote the letter to the church of Philadelphia, the beautiful thing about them is he had nothing negative to say. So there's something about this church that is something of a role model for us and very much something we want to be learning from. So let's take a look. Who's it to? Well, it's written to a church of real people, of course, as we keep on saying, and a real town called Philadelphia. And in that town, they were suffering persecution. And of course, although it was written to them, verse 13 tells you that it's for you and me to listen up to as well. You have ears, so listen. So who's it from? Well, verse 7, write this letter to the church, to the angel of the church in Philadelphia. This is the message from the one who is holy and true, the one who has the key of David. What he opens, no one can close. What he closes, no one can open. What a strange phrase. It's quite a description. It's a reference to Isaiah chapter 22. Slightly complicated setup there. There was a king who was to sit on David's throne. Was the context of what's being said there. And here in Revelation 3, Jesus is saying, that's me. I am the king to sit on David's throne. He is Emmanuel. He is God with us. He is the everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Quite a few of references and ideas coming through from Isaiah through the words that Jesus is using here. In terms of the key of David, and the door that no one can open and such things. He is the one who will rule over David's throne forever and ever, over God's people forever and ever. So here's the critical thing for Philadelphia, for the church at Philadelphia. Jesus is the one who holds the keys to the house. And that means two things. Firstly, the church is the continuation of God's people, the continuation of the spiritual elect Israel. In particular for Philadelphia, it's not the Jewish synagogue, it's the church is the continuation of God's people. Secondly, anybody who denies Jesus denies the one who holds the keys to the kingdom. So you remember from Chapter 1, verse 18, Jesus said he holds the keys to death and Hades, to hell itself. Which means that anybody pursuing any form of religion other than coming to Jesus as Lord and Messiah and God, anybody who denies those is pursuing a lie. And because he holds the keys to the house of God's people, anyone pursuing those other things won't get in. All other religion is sham. That's what Jesus is saying. It's absolutely shocking and powerful. And if he wasn't who he says he is, it would be outrageous. But who is Jesus? Well, verse 7, the one who is holy and true. And who is that but God alone? So we're to ponder him, we're to worship him, bow down before him and only him. And if you don't, you'll be cast away forever and ever. But if you have bowed down to him, the question then is, are you effective at making him known? Are you as effective at making him known as this little church in Philadelphia were? So, well, let's take a look. So, as Jesus lives, the church in Philadelphia kept Jesus' word because he lives. They've obeyed the call to witness to others about him. They didn't give in spite of all the persecution and difficulties they were facing. They carried on making Jesus known. So at the start of verse 8, when he says, I know all the things you do, it's their witness he specifically has in mind. You know, when you speak to your your family, your neighbours, your work colleagues, your school friends, wherever it is, and you speak to them about Jesus, Jesus knows. You might feel weak or persecuted. He knows. It's hugely encouraging. You might feel there's no point, that you're getting nowhere. The Philadelphian church might well have felt like that, actually, because it was a really hostile environment that they were speaking into. But, well, let's look at verses 8 and 9. I know all the things you do, and I have opened a door for you that no one can close. You have little strength, yet you obeyed my word and did not deny me. Look, I will force those who belong to Satan's synagogue, those liars who say they are Jews but are not, to come and bow down at your feet. They will acknowledge that you are the ones I love. In the New Testament, throughout the New Testament, open door language always refers to gospel opportunity. Jesus opens doors for you to explain the good news about him. Sometimes it can actually take you by surprise, and you find yourself in a conversation and you didn't see it coming. It's because he's opened the door. You know that strange feeling of in the dark, you go to push a door that's already open and your hand kind of goes through. Well, sometimes the Lord himself is opening a door for you and it takes you by surprise. And he holds it open then. The language of people coming to bow at the church's feet probably refers again to Isaiah 45, verse 14. They will fall to their knees in front of you and say, God is with you. He is the only God. There is no other. It's this expectation that people will come and turn to God themselves. So what's Jesus saying? Well, the church has been faithfully speaking about him, maybe for years. He has opened a door of opportunity for them, and no amount of opposition can close that door. Even some of those who persecute them will be brought by Jesus to worship God. And you think, well, that could never happen. Just remember Saul, Paul, and the transformation that came to him. Remember yourself. Doesn't that give you some encouragement about telling people? The idea that Jesus himself is the one that's opening doors for you. You won't know that the door is being held open for you unless you go and try it. But you might just be feeling tired. Well, do you know what? I get all that, but we've been pushing this water uphill for a long time now, and I'm just a bit tired. It's time for somebody else to take over. Well, Jesus has a word of perseverance for us in verse 10. Because you have obeyed my commands to persevere, I will protect you from the great time of testing that will come upon the whole world to test those who belong to this world. Ooh, time of testing. What time of testing is that? Most likely, he's talking about the general trials and tests that the whole world faces. Wars and natural disasters and pandemics. The things that might cause somebody to turn to God. How will Jesus protect his people at Philadelphia? Is he going to airlift them out of trouble? Absolutely not. I will keep you from. When he says that, keep you from, I'll protect you from, only appears once elsewhere in the New Testament. Something else also written by the same Apostle John. It's where Jesus prays for his disciples in John 17, verse 15. I'm not asking you to take them out of the world, but to keep them safe from the evil one. That was Christ's prayer for his people to the Father. There's no promise of escape from trouble. There is promise of help in trouble. So perseverance is remaining in Jesus. It's keeping close to him, to speak to him, to listen to him, to worship him, to love him. For those who have the idea of perseverance, of going is really, well, I persevere because I go to church each week. Well, the pandemic's been a bit of a rethink on that, hasn't it? Perseverance is perseverance in Christ. And perseverance is worth it because the future is wonderful. There are great and precious promises. Verse 11 and 12. I am coming soon. Hold on to what you have so that no one will take away your crown. All who are victorious will become pillars in the temple of my God, and they will never have to leave it. And I will write on them the name of my God, and they will be citizens in the city of my God, the new Jerusalem that comes down from heaven from my God. And I will also write on them my new name. Jesus was coming soon to Philadelphia to deal with those Jewish persecutors, to save some, it would seem, and to encourage his church. And so he makes these 4 connected promises to them, to the church of Philadelphia, and to us with ears to hear. Each of you will be a pillar in the temple of God forever, honoured in the presence of God, firm and strong in God's presence forever. God's name will be written on you. You belong to him. You know, we write our names on things that belong to us, don't we? God's own name written on you. That one, that's mine. The new Jerusalem will be written on you. You belong to God's people forever. They will be my God. I will be their God, and they will be my people. Jesus' new name will be written on you. He has saved you in this life to be his for eternity. So we persevere, don't we? These are promises of permanent belonging to God, permanently being one of his people forever and ever. Who writes these names on you? It's Jesus himself. The security of your eternity rests on him, the one who is holy and true. So Jesus knows your efforts at witness for him. He encourages you to keep persevering in him. And the thought that even in a pandemic he himself can open doors is hugely encouraging. And he can hold them open. Many churches have experienced people coming to faith even through online services. Doesn't that give you encouragement to share links to online services, if nothing else? The door is open. If you believe in God, speak. Speak to him. Speak of him. See you tomorrow.